Saya mencintai Indonesia secara tanpa syarat. Di sini saya dilahirkan, di sini saya dibesarkan, dan di sini saya akan berjuang. Kecintaan pada Indonesia membuat saya tidak akan bisa meninggalkan tanah ini. Saya akan tetap berada di Indonesia.
First and foremost, I would like to thank Bapak Dr. Dino Patijalal for inviting me as the Foreign Minister of Republic of Indonesia to such an incredible forum. This is a great honor actually for me. But before I carry on, let me also address some of the dignitaries.
Thank you, Professor Susana, for a very generous introduction. Professor Kanti Bajpai and all faculty members of the Lee Kuan Yew School of Public Policy, Mr. Ambassador, who are with us today, and all participants. It is indeed a privilege and honor for me to be here this afternoon, come back to Lee Kuan Yew School of Public Policy and had the opportunity to share some of our works. And yes, Jakarta has many challenges. I'll share a few, but coming to Singapore is truly a break. It's really a break. You know, coming to a city without worrying about water, with worrying about any of the challenge. I'm as visitors, because if you're in Jakarta, you travel, and then as you know, as much as you are observing the city, you're also thinking what needs to be fixed, what needs to be developed. But here we are visiting, and you don't have to worry about anything here in Singapore. So it's good to be back in Singapore, and I'm privileged with this opportunity to share some of the things that we're doing. The city, you're also thinking what needs to be fixed, what needs to be developed. But here we are visiting, and you don't have to worry about anything here in Singapore. So it's good to be back in Singapore, and I'm privileged with this opportunity to share some of the things that we're doing.
That are present in this room. When I walked in, I shook hands and watched that there are so many dignitaries and excellencies present. But when I asked my staff of the list of the dignitaries, they only put 4. So I'm really sorry. But of course, with all due respect, I would like to address first His Royal Highness Prince Turki Al Faisal Al Saud, Chairman of the King Faisal Center for Research and Islamic Studies, His Excellency Dr. Martina Talagawa, my predecessor, Minister of Foreign Affairs of the Republic of Indonesia 2009-2014, and also co-founder of FPCI, Ibu Profesor Dewi Fortuna Anwar, and also former ambassadors, former foreign ministers, former vice foreign ministers who attend this very distinguished forum held by FPCI.
And let me sort of share some of the the big pictures of our challenge in Jakarta. Jakarta is a city with 11 million population. So when it comes to some of the key features, we have 11 million people, and plus around 23 million in surrounding. So a total around 35 millions. That's Jakarta greater area. And the size of Jakarta itself is only 660 kilometers square. So basically 20 by 30 kilometers square. And we contributed 17% of our national GDP. So with the larger area, it's no less than 25% of the national GDP is in that area. So it is a city that is significant to Indonesia, and many challenges that we have. If I may say so, there's four big issues that whenever we're doing surveys, what are things that concern most to our resident? Number one would be cost of living. Number two would be healthcare. Number three, education, employment. These are top four issues that our populations has always responding whenever there is a survey. And unfortunately, flood is never on the top list. Or fortunately, there is a global challenge that city like us.
And also, our fellow FPCI chapters, who, as Pak Dino mentioned before, came from all over the place, all over the campuses around Indonesia. Some travel hours and days, and some even travels on boat to get to Jakarta to attend this very wonderful conference. Thank you very much, everyone. It is an honor for me as a foreign minister to attend and stand here right in front of you. To be honest, when Pak Dino sent me a letter, I know there are 3 letters actually Pak Dino sent. One to the President of the Republic of Indonesia, the second one to the Minister of Foreign Affairs, and the third one convincing the Indonesian Foreign Minister to attend this forum. I had no clue, of course. I think everyone here gets the record that I only been a foreign minister for a little more than a month now. I didn't realize of how big and impactful this conference is.
And this is sort of issues across the globe. We're talking about how can we make our city more livable? Because more and more people are living in the urban area. As of today, in Indonesia, we have around 56% of our population living in the urban area. And it is projected that by 2050, 75% of Indonesians will be living in the urban area. So we have these big challenges. And then those 4 challenges that I mentioned earlier. Surveys to our residents have come up with 4 issues. One is living costs. 2 is about health. 3 is about education. And 4 is about employment. So when it comes to living costs, what are the structure here? 1 is food. 2 is housing. 3 is mobility. These are components that are so critical when it comes to cost of living. When it comes to health, we're talking about coverage or insurance. And then education and employment. I'll talk about all of that. I'll address this first issue first. Because if you talk to people in Jakarta, what will be the most pressing issue? Everybody will talk about cost of living. That's number 1. And then on the first issue is food. We imported food from outside. So 99.9% of food available in the household of Jakartans are coming from outside the city. So ensuring food supplies is truly extremely critical to us. So when I was asked, Pak Anies, what is in your mind every day in the morning when you wake up as a governor? then my reply would be, is the food price change? Not flood, not traffic. It's been there for years. But this is one factor that if it change, if it increase, it's not only affecting Jakartans, but across Indonesia. The inflations that Jakarta can contribute is significant. So on this, we organize, we're talking about policies. Our approach is to divide between supply and demand. On the supply side, we had state-owned enterprises to manage supply of food. And then we have our bureaucrats in the departments to measure demands and to sort of extrapolate, project demands. In the past, these two, the bureaucrats and the state enterprise, were working together. Some were working on the supply side, some were working on the demand side. Since 2018, we divided into the two. The state-owned enterprises focus on supply, and the departments is focusing on demand. And none is working on the same issue. For example, when the company here, talking about supply, they form collaborations with certain region in Indonesia to produce rice, for example. In the past, that kind of collaborations are happening between our company and our Department of Food. And because of that, there is mismanagement issues. So that's two. And then number two is to make sure that food market is efficient. And to do that, we have an application called IPJ, Indeks Pangan Jakarta. So if any of you had the opportunity, download that application. It's called IPJ, Info Pangan Jakarta. And on that application, this is the applications, you will be able to see all commodities and the price change at real time. Why do we need this? This is in order to create a symmetric information within the market. That is how government intervene, not by subsidies, but by creating efficient market. So what price is reflected here? It's a wholesaler market, Pasar Induk Kramat Jati. Pasar Induk Kramat Jati is where all agricultural product is coming to Jakarta. It'll come to this one big market. By knowing the price there, we know exactly the difference between Pasar Induk and the retail store, the warung in the kampung. And by having this information transparent, we are able to create a more efficient market for food. So we rely on market, but government intervene by providing this and ensuring there is time in which we need to intervene. When we need to intervene, we're intervening at the wholesaler market so that the supply is stable. So that's one. Two, housing. On housing, there's two things here. There's not enough space there, so I'll use this here. I divided into two issues here. With regard to housing, there is home seeker, house seeker, those who wanted to have a house, and those who already have homes. We have two different policies here. Why I divide into two? Jakarta is the only area in Indonesia in which price of land were increasing significantly, and sometimes exponential level. So the price of land is truly increasing. Why? Because there is limited land, and prices keep going up. And one of the driver for that increase of price is our property tax. So government is very effective in increasing price of land in Indonesia, in Jakarta, by introducing policies that, from our perspective, we'd like to increase our revenue from tax by giving property tax much higher rate. But on the other hand, it has effect on people that the price of land increasing, many unable to pay the tax. So for this, the tax policy we introduced to ensure they're able to stay where they are. On house seekers, for the one with purchasing power that is high, and those in the middle, and then those who are low income. The approach are different. For those with high purchasing power, we let the market to operate. You know, you have this advertisement of new houses, new flats, new dormitory and things like that. That's through the market mechanisms. But those in the middle and the low income, they have difficulties entering the market and getting home. So on this area, we created a project. It's called Zero Down Payment Project. This is for those who are earning from minimum wage up to 15 million. Minimum wage is 4.6 million rupiah, which is in dollars, 400 Singapore dollars, up to 15 millions. 15 millions would be 1,500. So that's the range. Those who are making that level of monthly income, they are able to engage on a mortgage, on payment, monthly payment, but most of the time they didn't have the money for down payment. So we created a zero down payment project. So you don't have to pay the zero down payment, but the monthly installment they'll be able to do. That's for the second. And then for the low income is rental flat. And in the past 5 years, we built all of this. We built around 33 towers to help facilitate this segment of our society. And then the last one is for the homeowners of Jakarta. We have been seeing migrations on a regular basis and rather structural. Those who used to live in the middle relocating outside the city and selling their lands, many of them because they're unable to afford the property tax. If any of you were monitoring news from Indonesia, about a few weeks ago, there's a phenomenon called Citayam Fashion Week. Citayam Fashion Week, with the youth were coming. We did it. We researched a little bit further. Many of these teenagers were there. Their childhood were in the neighborhood. Their parents were relocating to Citayam area, to Depok area, to outside the city. So when they're going back to their area, it's actually they're going back to their old neighborhood because they used to live around that area. So the story behind the lesson behind this is that if we are allowing property tax to continue rising in Jakarta, we will be basically punishing the old residents who live in the strategic area for decades, for generations, because they're no longer able to afford a property tax in that area. So our approach is that then we provided a tax break for anyone that own homes below 2 billion rupiah. The property tax is zero. Above that, then property tax being introduced. So that's on the housings. Now on the mobility. On the mobility, let me give you an illustrations. I'll talk further about this.
Listening to Pa Dino's presentation on how he found FPCI 10 years ago, along with Ibu Dewi Fortuna Anwar as the co-founder, it is very heartwarming because I can see the spirit, the idealism, the hope of all the attendees in this room on how Indonesia can contribute to international relationship and be a global player to maintain peace and order regionally and globally. And I've been to some conferences in my trip with the President to APEC, to G20. I thought again, this is with all due respect, because some of the testimonies also mentioned this. I was a bit, what do you call that? Optimist, not optimist, maybe it's not the exact word, because, you know, I feel that I thought I was the young foreign minister which I met during the trip. But being in this room, I realized that there are so many young people also aspiring to make an impact in international relation, make an impact of Indonesia diplomacy in the future, and I believe many among you will one day be in my position now. Thank you very much again.
We have 11 million people and we have 13 million motorized vehicles. So we have more motors than people. So on mobility, we are facing quite a serious challenge. 4 million people commuting daily, 3.5 million cars, 16 million motorcycles in an area that is so small. So mobility is an issue. That's why we have traffic congestion and sometimes it's a gridlock.